Chapter 42. Darkness of the Night. Lin Feng had released his dark spirit and he was not aware of how sinister he looked at that moment. He was calm and calculating, staring with eyes filled with no emotion. The practitioner who fired the arrow was stunned at such a terrifying gaze. Lin Feng seemed calm and at the same time murderous. Under such a situation, how was it possible to be so calm? Lin Feng took a step forward and used moonlight feather agility. Lin Feng was instantly in front of a group of people, making them unable to use their bows at such a close distance. The long sword as it sliced through the air made a terrible wailing noise. Lin Feng was thrusting his sword towards them and each strike was more precise than the last. With every movement he was dodging an attack and blocking another with his sword. Everyone was furious. He was not only dodging their attack calmly, but he had also killed so many of them already. Now they could not use their bows, they were slowly being pushed back. "Release your spirits and kill him," shouted Na Lan Hai furiously, but he could not help but subconsciously retreat. As Lin Feng had arrived right in front of them, he was the most terrified of all. When he looked into Lin Feng's eyes, he could see overwhelming murderous intent, but even more terrifying was how calm and composed he was. Na Lan Hai's heart was pounding, his entire body was shaking with fear. When everyone heard Na Lan Hai, they all moved forwards and released their spirits. The night was exceptionally dark tonight, but releasing that many spirits immediately lit the area with prismatic light. An assassin with a vine spirit had managed to sneak behind Lin Feng. That spirit gave its cultivator a body that was flexible and strong. When the strength of its cultivator had become high enough, he could use his vine spirit to constrict enemies. The cultivator's body would become like a vine, it would be almost boneless and was able to change forms. He was surrounded by vines that were spreading and extending throughout the atmosphere. It didn't seem to follow a precise trajectory, but was wild and untamed. When the cultivator saw that his hand was almost upon Lin Feng, a hideous grin appeared on his face. Immediately after, when the assassin seemed to be so proud of himself, a silver light appeared in the air and pierced him in the eye and through the back of his skull. His body was supported by the sword, which simply tilted downwards, and the assassin's head slid down the sword, until it was completely removed. The sword strike was so precise, so quick and so flawless that it was scary. There was not a single ounce of wasted energy or unnecessary movement. He had killed that cultivator in a single strike, in such a terrifying way. The scariest part was that Lin Feng still remained calm as he watched the impaled head slide off his sword. Lin Feng didn't stop and instead used this to his advantage to attack. Lin Feng's sword was streaking across the night sky like a meteor. Another stream of blood splashed in the air, another person fell down dead. As the moonlight pierced the clouds and the dark night was illuminated, it seemed like a world of blood. These cultivators were all at the 8th and 9th chi layers. Each time Lin Feng attacked, it was almost impossible for them to dodge a single strike. Lin Feng's speed and accuracy were beyond perfect. They could do nothing to resist such a monster. A heavy meteor-like object was crashing through the air towards Lin Feng's head. If he allowed himself to be hit, he might not die, but he would be unable to win this fight and would be killed because of that. His life was balancing on a thin line. "Do you think I will let you dodge?" At the moment when Lin Feng was attempting to dodge, a spear was piercing through the air and blocking his escape. The spear was amazingly powerful. He was being attacked from the front and the rear simultaneously. This was a strategy developed through battle and targeting Lin Feng's certain death. "Die!" Lin Feng shouted loudly, then he threw his long sword with incredible speed. The sword pierced through the air and finally plummeted deep into the spear-wielding opponent's chest. The assassin stood there with disbelieving eyes as he looked down to see the sword piercing through his chest. He felt like it must be a nightmare, this could not possibly be reality. He had never thought that Lin Feng would dare to dispose of weapon and use it to kill one of the attackers. Lin Feng was at the 9th chi layer and was much stronger than each of them. However, he was clearly outnumbered by a great deal. Only one of them needed to reach Lin Feng and he would be severely injured. These injuries could even cost Lin Feng's life. Lin Feng should be vigilant and very defensive, however he had just risked his life on that last gamble. Lin Feng had thrown away his sword for the sake of killing another one of the groups. It was terrifying to witness such disregard for his own life, with such a calm and calculating face. The one with the sword deep in his chest was just staring at Lin Feng. These were his last moments and he wanted to watch how Lin Feng was going to die as the meteor crashed into his head. Silence filled the atmosphere. Lin Feng was holding a luminous sword. The meteor still hadn't reached its destination. Instead, the cultivator with the meteor spirit, his head had been sent flying in the air, completely removed from his body. Lin Feng was using his soft sword and at this moment he was drenched in blood. "This is my fate." His opponent closed his eyes and his body collapsed onto the ground with a loud crash. The head of the one who had been beheaded a moment before falling down from the air onto the ground. Everyone looked on, frozen as if time had just stopped. They were asking themselves who could have survived that last sword strike. Sword unsheathing. At the moment when the sword was unsheathed, the opponent's head was sent flying. How could cultivators of the 9th chi layer compete with a strength and power such as that produced by the sword unsheathing skill? The opponents had forgotten to attack, but Lin Feng didn't forget. Flashes of light one after the other appeared as Lin Feng slashed through the air. Each light was accompanied by a stream of blood. The current scenery was a landscape of blood. Each strike with his sword reached its target, not a single movement was wasted. Each strike was precise and deadly. At that moment, Lin Feng had forgot the meaning of mercy. Apart from being calm, as he bathed in this world of blood and took life after life, he could only feel indifferent. Na Lan Hai looked at each corpse as it fell to the ground. Body after body was falling to the ground in a rain of blood. He was shaking and his mind had wanted to run, but his legs were too weak. Each body represented a cultivator above the 8 chi layer, and there were now dozens of those bodies scattered on the ground. They represented the strong potential in Yangzhou City, and particularly in the clan which controlled the city. At that moment, they were all lying dead on the ground and had fallen as easily as straw. They had all been killed one after the other by Lin Feng. All these people were supporters of Na Lan Hai and had contributed to his success. Lin Feng had killed so much talent belonging to his clan, it was a devastating blow. What was it that made Lin Feng's sword so deadly? What was it in Lin Feng's eyes that scared Na Lan Hai so much? Was it because he looked so calm? It looked like Lin Feng was used to slaughtering people as if they were cattle. The whistling sound of his sword cutting through the air was getting more and more intense, to the point that with each whistle it seemed like the rain had stopped making sounds. The entire atmosphere was filled with the sword chi, and there was no room for anything else. The extremely strong chi was also getting more and more powerful with each strike. Run! Na Lan Hai, who was scared beyond belief, had somehow come back into reality. Na Lan Hai had only one thought: get him and his clan as far away from that demon as possible. Without the least bit of hesitation, Na Lan Hai turned around and started running. Do you want to leave now? Don't you think it's a bit too late? Said a cold voice that seemed like the darkness itself speaking. The sound of the sword attacking suddenly stopped. Only the sound of Lin Feng's steps on the wet ground could still be heard. Na Lan Hai stopped walking and turned around. He was staring face to face with Lin Feng. His face was twisted and ugly. He was trying to smile, but tears rolled down his cheeks and whimpers escaped his mouth. You are listening to Peerless Martial God audio on light novel Aloud. Lin Feng, you know that this has nothing to do with me. It was the young miss who ordered us to kill you. I only acted under orders as it is my duty, nothing more. I know, said Lin Feng while nodding, which made Na Lan Hai suddenly regain hope. That is why I must put the dog out of its misery, otherwise it will continue to be forced to do these things by its master. Immediately after, Na Lan Hai saw a bright silver light flash through the air, and it was the last thing he saw. His head had been cleanly removed from his body. When Lin Feng saw Na Lan Hai collapse, he remained expressionless. He turned around and saw the piles of corpses. There were dozens upon dozens of corpses lying on the ground. The soil had been dyed red with the blood spilt. He did not have time to stop, instead he started walking into the distance. Na Lan Feng. A low voice echoed through the darkness of the night, and it seemed like the darkness was moving. Lin Feng didn't know how long he had been walking. He arrived in a territory under nobody's control. He sat in meditation on the ground. His body was absorbing the chi of heaven and earth and releasing it from his body at the same time. The chi around Lin Feng's body turned into a glowing essence. That essence surrounded his body like an aura. His dark spirit was thrashing around. Lin Feng knew that he was about to break through to the Ling Chi layer. It was said that the spirit is a part of one's soul. The soul could provide many unique abilities. While sitting on the ground, Lin Feng's eyebrows strongly shook. At that moment, Lin Feng had a very strange feeling, but he was unable to describe it. It was as if something was calling out to him. At that moment, Lin Feng felt a strong pain throughout his body. He knew that the most dangerous moment had arrived. Only those with an extremely strong determination were able to make their spirit awaken. Everybody knew that on the continent, without an extremely strong willpower and determination, the spirit could not awaken. The pain became stronger and stronger. Lin Feng felt like his soul was being torn into pieces, slice by slice, piece by piece. Lin Feng was suffering so much that he bit his lips so hard that blood began to flow. So painful, how can it be so painful? Lin Feng had underestimated the moment of the spirit awakening. He would have never thought that it would be so painful. He had nearly died in the past. The pain that he had endured before was nothing in comparison with that of the spirit awakening. This pain was inhumane. It gradually stopped raining, but Lin Feng did not notice. Lin Feng was still soaked, but he wasn't sure if it was because of the rain or because of the sweat. He only knew that his body was in agonizing pain. Lin Feng shouted extremely loudly. The pain hadn't stopped. An even stronger pain invaded his body. The soul was being torn apart even more than before. It made him wish he could die and end his suffering. If I am unable to endure this pain, my spirit will never awaken. I will have to continue being bullied by others, like when my father and I had to leave the Lin clan. Lin Qian or the Nalan clan will continue to make attempts in my life. These repeated humiliations were unbearable. One person can only take so much humiliation and regret. Lin Feng persevered and kept thinking about his father and the humiliation he received. Nobody could stop him at that moment. Nobody could prevent him from becoming stronger, not even the gods. The pain was unable to make Lin Feng lose hope and determination. It seemed like Lin Feng's willpower was actually willing the pain away. Lin Feng also became more relaxed in his heart. His spirit should be able to awaken without any problem. Lin Feng gave a shout with unprecedented brutality. Lin Feng was suddenly shaking from head to toe. A pain infinitely stronger than what he had previously gone through until that moment invaded his body. It made Lin Feng close his eyes and grit his teeth. The 7 apertures of Lin Feng's head, eyes, ears, nostrils and mouth were all bleeding. Fuck, no, I cannot go like this. Lin Feng cursed. Immediately after, Lin Feng collapsed lifelessly on the floor. End of chapter 42. Hope you guys enjoy the chapter. Please consider subscribing and hit that bell button for future updates.